The Allay is one of the new mobs in Minecraft 1.19. With its unique ability to fly and collect items to give to the players, at times it can feel more like a portable hopper rather than an actual mob. But overall, I really enjoyed this mob, probably as many of you do as well. But there is one burning question that I have on the Allay, and that's what's the backstory behind this strange new mob? And so, here's my theory on the story behind the Allay. Long ago, the Allay was not always the Allay. In fact, millions of years ago lived a mob called the Wisp. The Wisp were small flying mobs, and they were peaceful creatures who loved the ancient people of their time. In fact, their favourite thing to do was to find items and give them to their people. Also, there were 4 different types of these Wisps. There was the dark blue variant, the pink variant, the gold variant, and the most magical of all, the light blue variant. And all of these wisps lived in harmony with the people until one day something changed. Deep within an ancient city, a group of evil evokers were doing some shady experiments that all the other residents of the ancient civilization disapproved with, and as a punishment, the evokers were banished from the ancient city. So, rather than hopelessly trying to fight back the powerful ancient civilization, the evokers left the ancient city and went on a search for a new home. They ended up settling in a dark oak forest, and they used their dark magic to construct what we now know as the Woodland Mansion. After creating the Woodland Mansion, they continued doing their evil experiment, attempting to create a powerful weapon to get back at those who kicked them away from their original home. At first, they tried to create an end portal, so that way they could possibly possess the legendary Ender Dragon, but that didn't quite work out. Next, they tried to create giants to be powerful fighters for them and take down the ancient city, but that also didn't work. But just as all hope was lost, they found something that would prove to be very useful: the Golden Wisp. Using their dark magic, the evokers were able to combine the Golden Wisp with gold blocks and emeralds to create the Totem of Subscribing. I meant the Totem of Undying. Now, at first glance, that may sound crazy, but it actually makes more sense if you look at the totem more closely. Firstly, if you look at the shape of the totem's head in more detail, then you would realize that it actually resembles the Golden Wisp's head. Also, the arms on the totem are at a 90-degree angle and straight, just like how the Wisp's arm are. Additionally, if you look at the eyes of the totem, they have a very similar shape to the Wisp's eyes, but instead of just being white, they have been fused with emeralds and have been turned green. And so, with that experiment, the evokers had created a path for immortality. But they were greedy and they wanted more. So, after seeing the success of the Totem of Undying, the evokers hunted down every single golden wisp to the point of extinction just so that they could make enough totems to become unkillable. Meanwhile, the ancient city observed from afar and decided that the best way to stop the evokers getting even more powerful was to protect the other variants of the wisp, mainly the light blue wisps, as they were the strongest and had the greatest potential to the evokers. Now, the evokers didn't like the fact that the ancient people were preventing their growth of power, and as such, they developed a plan to get into the ancient city and steal the blue wisps. And we can guess that the evokers were planning for quite a while to go on this heist, as they had created large world maps in their mansions so they would know where to go to find the ancient cities. However, their first heist was a complete, failure, as all the light blue wisps were able to adapt really quickly to their situation when they realized that they were being attacked. And so, they grew bigger and stronger wings to fly away faster, and this adaptation for the light blue wisp turned them into what we now recognize today as the Allay. Now, the evokers were quite frustrated as they had just lost their chance to gain the powers of the Allay, but they were also very impressed with the Allay's ability to change so quickly, which motivated them even more to capture the Allay. But the evokers believed that in order to capture the Allay and harness its ever-growing powers, they first need to create their own Allay. Except, unlike the real one, the evokers version would be evil and a trained hunter. And so, the evokers went on the hunt for the other 2 types of wisps, the dark blue and the pink wisps, to create their version of the Allay. And I'm sure you're wondering, what was the evoker's version of the Allay? Well, it was the Vex. By fusing both the dark blue and the pink wisps, along with some of their evil magic, the evokers were able to create this monster. This monster was based off the Allay, but it was much more evil and had a burning hatred for the ancient people. So now, at this point, the ancient civilization was starting to get quite scared of the evokers, and as such, they constructed cages within the ancient city, so that way, if the evokers and the Vex ever arrived, they could trap them. But those cages didn't scare the evokers. In fact, it motivated them to go and attack the ancient city just to prove those people wrong. However, once again, that didn't work out too well for the evokers, as on their second attempt to steal the light blue Allays, most of the evokers and Vexes were captured in their cages. But unlike the first raid, some of the Allays were stolen, and they were brought back to the Woodland Mansion. So now, the remaining evokers attempted to experiment on the Allay, but there was a slight problem. In order for their experiments to be effective, they needed more Allays. But that was going to be really hard to do, especially with the ancient city now on high alert. So, in the meantime, the evokers trapped the Allays they did have within a prison deep within the compounds of the Woodland Mansion. And so, the evokers set out one more plan to gain the powers of the Allay. And one of the parts of this plan was to experiment on the Vex one more time, giving it the ability to go through walls but still being able to attack entities, essentially making it a very powerful ghost. And that, hopefully, in the evoker's mind would allow them to finally overpower the ancient civilization and take the Allay. And so, here's what happened on that day. All the evokers and Vexes became invisible using their dark magic, and they entered the ancient city. The first place they went to was the old laboratory, that laid untouched since their banishment. They then stole some of the most intelligent people within the city. They then forced them to work alongside the evoker in their experiment with their dark magic, the Allay, and the ancient city's advanced redstone. And so, the evokers, with the unwilling aid of the intelligent people, started their experiments. Except, these experiments went very, very wrong. If you want to know what happened next, watch this video.